So most of the questions were about scheduling meetings and getting that all set up. And there are two ways to schedule a meeting. You can either do it in a web browser or you can do it right from the app. And honestly, I do it from a web browser almost all of the time. And the reason for that is it just seems easier. Sometimes doing it from the app, it seems like settings change, Zoom changes, etc. So I'm going to show you how to do it from the web browser. So you just go to zoom.us and it will come up with a sign in page. So you want to sign in. And if you're doing this from your school account, sign in with Google down here at the bottom. And then you have a bunch of options. It shows meetings that are upcoming, a personal room, which I don't ever use, and some other things. So you go to schedule a meeting right up here. And when you schedule that meeting, give it a name. So for example, if it's office hours, you could say that. A description, which can help people remember what it is or help you remember what it is, but that's optional. And then you set the time and date. Honestly, this doesn't really matter. If you're using a calendar or putting it somewhere else, it's good to know. But it doesn't mean you can't start the meeting until that time. As the host, you can start the meeting whenever you want. So let's just set a random time here. And let's also say that it's going to be a recurring meeting. This means that you can use the same link again and again and again. Something like office hours or a regularly scheduled team meeting would be the perfect use for that. I'm going to say recurring meeting, and I'm going to say you can select any one of these. So I'm going to say weekly occurs on this time. You can set an end date, or you could set how many meetings it's going to go for. So in this case, I'll just leave it where it defaulted because it's just a test. It asks you if you want registration to be required. I've never found a use for this. This means that somebody would have to click on the link, put their name and email address in, and then they'll get another link to the meeting. It's useful for very large public meetings, but doesn't really seem to apply to us. And then you come down here to security. You can choose to set a passcode for your meeting or not. 90% of the time, I don't use a passcode, and the reason for that is I don't post links publicly. If you're going to post a link to a website that's accessible to the public, like your school website or maybe a landing page, then you might want to use a passcode, but I'm not going to now. And the waiting room. The waiting room is a great feature. This lets you see who's coming into the meeting before they get there and admit them either as a whole group or one at a time. So I'll leave that on. Video, yes, I want to be able to use video, and I want the participants to be able to use video. Audio, this is how people can access the audio in your meeting. They can either call in by telephone, they can use their computer audio, or they can use both. Pretty much always just leave it at both. That way your meeting's accessible to people who have limited connectivity, and also audio is available. Then you got a couple different options down here. Enable join before host. Rarely, if ever, do you want to use that in a school setting. What that means is people can sign into the meeting and talk to each other before you get there. So if you had students who were coming in and this was enabled, they would be able to join the meeting and do whatever they needed to do in the meeting before you got there. So it's a bad idea. Mute participants upon entry. This one is great. Always select this. What that means is when people sign into your meeting for the first time, they sign in muted instead of unmuted. It stops your meeting from being interrupted about 100 times by somebody yelling to somebody else in their house before they realize they're muted. So mute participants upon entry. Only authenticated users can join, never gets used. And then you can choose whether or not you're going to automatically record the meeting. I usually don't. If I'm going to record a meeting, I'll do that when I actually start the meeting. Down here, you can set an alternative host. So if you and another teacher are hosting the meeting together, this is where you can put that other person's username in. After that, you hit save. And there you go. You'll get details on your meeting, and you can copy the invitation right here. And that gives you way too much information, but that's what you can send out to people.